Hello friends, welcome back. Want to finally understand how NgRx works without diving into complex theories? In this video, we will build a real-world bank selection app using NgRx Store in Angular. It's simple, interactive, and beginner-friendly. You will learn how to manage the state, use actions, reducer, and selectors, everything you need to get confident with NgRx. So let's get started. Okay, so I'm going to start from the scratch so that a lot of people are asking about this, and it's going to be from the very basic. If imagine you don't know anything about this, okay, so you will become a pro at the end of this video. So stay with me for the whole video. I'm going to start creating a new project so that this project has only NgRx, and an existing project that I already have it in GitHub will have the whole code as well. Okay, so check out the description for the project details. So check out the description for the repository details where you can find the code. Now what we are going to do is we're going to create a new app with NgRx example as the name of the project. We're going to choose CSS. They are not really important. I will say no. Okay, so while this is getting created, what we are going to do is we're going to understand few important things. Okay, so we are going to start with our NgRx concept. So NgRx is a state management. So we will be covering these things in this video. What is NgRx? A real life analogy. Why do we use it? How does it work? How this flow is in the NgRx, and like we deep dive into the real world example and step by step, line by line coding examples. I will explain you every single line of code that is there for this whole example. Okay. So what is NgRx? NgRx is a state management. It's a state management library for Angular. So what it does, it helps your app remember and manage the data. Here, the data is called a state. And that is not only on one component, it is across multiple components in a structured and a predictable way. Don't worry if you didn't understand, okay? We're going to see with examples. Okay, let's consider a real life analogy. Let's say you're ordering your food at the restaurant. Okay, you as a user are filling a form. Now the form is like a questionnaires. Okay, multiple questions. Now here in the restaurant there's something called waiter, right? Somebody called waiter. Consider the waiter as a component. This waiter sends your order to the kitchen. A component sends this information to the store in the coding perspective. Okay, store is the place where it stores all of your information. Now here comes the kitchen. Consider kitchen as a reducer, which process the order. Kitchen is the one which processes your order, right? Cooks the food, like somebody cooks the food in the kitchen. So it's processing the order and updates the order status, whether it is preparing, it's ready, all of those things. Now the waiter comes back to you and tells you what's going on. That is nothing but a selector. So here the analogy, the important concepts here: user, component, reducer, selector, store, and then all of these things plays specific responsibility. So basically NgRx is just a fancy system to organize this flow. Okay, stay with me, don't worry even if you don't understand, we will go step by step. Consider this basic terms. Okay, so we have something called store. Store means it's a special place in the memory in JavaScript, right? So when our Angular app is JavaScript, right? So in the browser there's a special memory, okay, that stores your app wide data, and here that is what we call it as state. Application wide data means anyone in the application can be used. That is stored in the store. That is nothing but the state. So state is nothing but what? An actual data in the store. Okay. Action. What is action? An action is like you do something. For example, from the UI, user hits something, clicks a button, clicks on a next button. So that's an action, right? So action is nothing but a message that says, hey, something happened, like just a broadcasting kind of thing. Reducer is another concept. Reducer is nothing but a function, a return function. Return function means like you write a function and you define how the function will look like. A function that changes the state based on an action. So from the user perspective, if user clicks a button or selected an answer and clicks a button, now that is a new action a user has performed, right? Now that action should do something. What it is doing, it is taking that value, going to the store and going to update it. It is what the reducers work. What is selector? Let's say you present a data to the user. Okay, you need to read what the user has selected, right? So reading from the store of your data is called selector. Dispatch is another concept that comes along with the action. So basically dispatch is nothing but it is a way of sending an action. Okay, let's consider this, whatever we are going to do. We have our questionnaire example. Okay, store is nothing but it keeps all the answer for all the questions. If you have three questions and its answer. So store will have all of those information. State is for which question, what answer. Current state, it can change. When it will change, if an action was performed. Let's say the user answered question 1 with below 1000. That's an action because user did something. Maybe user go to the second question and change, instead of frequently it is daily. That's an action. Okay, now whatever that action has performed needs to be updated in the store. That's a state, right? It's state changed. Yesterday, 10 years back we were young, now we are getting older. The state changed. Similarly, user selected something sometime back, now he changed. The state got updated. Okay, so reducer is the one which will update this value in the store. Selectors will go and read and give you what is there in the store. Dispatch is just a way of telling that something happened. Like now user just picked an option, dispatch the answer. Okay, that's what a simple term is. Now, so why do we use this NgRx? See, because Angular apps can get complex fast, right? With many components and all of those things. We have to, there's a need for shared data, updating the shared data, avoid spaghetti code. All of these things can be achieved with NgRx. So NgRx gives us a standard way to handle this complexity using a clear rule, which you will see in the example. And so let's talk about our big picture. So we have a form that asks you 3 questions, one by one. Have you gone to any of the banking website? Okay, you guys, if you are in from US or some foreign nation, there are some banks, many of the banks, when you land. Okay, let me give a live example. I went to chase.com and I just don't know what account I need to create. You see this? Need help finding the right checking account? Okay, it's like a questionnaire. It's going to ask you. Let's take this example, okay? It's a real world example, right? See, the 4 questions. What type of checking account are you looking for today? I will choose. Is it for kid or for me? For me. Second question, based on what you selected. A current student and active. Let's say I choose this. It's the next question. How much do you think you will keep in your account? Maybe this. Do you have plans to use paper check? No. Then based on what you choose, it is telling what card is good for you. Exactly, this is what the state is. So for example, right, in this case I cannot go back. Oh, I can go back. See, I can go back and choose. See, it's this one. I can click here, I can go back and I can choose something else. So based on what you choose, it is giving you a result, right? That is what managing a state. Now on the same page, you managed a data collected from the user. So in our case, in our example, we are going to present 3 questions, exactly similar. We are mimicking what bank is doing, but with the NgRx, we don't know what they are using. An account recommendation based on what answer you choose. That is what we are going to do. It's a real world example, right? This is how the flow will be. We will have a component that options will be selected. it will dispatch the answer that you choose, it will update, store, components will read the answers that you already selected, and based on all the 3 questions that you answered, we finally show the recommendation. That is what we are going to do. Okay, like whatever I just explained is what is written here. It shows 3 questions one by one. Let user select an answer for each. Allow the navigation back and forth. So we will give back and forth, and not only that, we'll be one step ahead of what we saw in the chase. We will also we will also store what they choose, which means if they go back and forth, we will pre-select what they already selected, and I'm going to show you the demo. Okay, so that is what we are going to do. So before we further go into the slide, let's take a look at the demo. Okay, so this is our demo app, right? This is an existing repository in github.com. I just added this after our signal. I added this. We have 2 examples. In this video, we'll take a look at this example, and then in the next video, we'll talk about this one, which is little more than what you see here. Okay, we have to go step by step. First one, so job role screener. Okay, so it's going to ask you, what's your monthly income? Okay, let's say below 1,000. Next, see, this is disabled, this is enabled. How often will you withdraw money? Maybe sometimes. Next, are you planning to run a business with this account? Yes or no? But before I choose, can I go back? Yes, answer is selected. Go back, selected. Can I change this? Yes. So whenever you do this, right, an action is performed and you're going to the next screen, the store is now updated with that value. If I go back, this is still there. That is what we are going to build with NgRx. So the state management, starting from the first screen till the end of the screen where you finish, and finally it will show you the recommendation. Okay, so based on what you choose, we collect all the 3 answers, we show the recommendation. The whole concept is NgRx. We store the information, we maintain the state. They can go back and choose whatever they want. You saw what happened? The moment I changed here, the state updated, though it is no. So for example, yes, if I say rarely, okay, I think it's the same thing. The moment if I say no and I change this, see, this is changing because based on those 3 conditions, currently it is recommending the checking account. That is what our app we are going to build. Okay, I hope you are excited to see this. Come, let's get into the coding. Okay, this is where we stopped. We're going to resume from here. See, the new project has been created. I'm going to say cd ng. Okay, so let's go inside this. Okay, I'm going to say code space dot. This will open that project in our Visual Studio Code, and here is our Visual Studio Code. And just to make it big, Control plus. I hope this is better in view. I'm going to close this. Let's go and see what this is, right? So if you look at this package, it is using Angular 19, though Angular 20 has come as of this recording, but we'll stick to Angular 19 because all the respective dependencies will soon they update, like NgRx, any packages that you use, they will soon update to 20. So we will stick with 19. 20 has just got released. Okay, now we are here, we have nothing else here. We will just create one by one, and we'll see how this looks. Okay, now let's go to this terminal, new terminal. Okay, what do we want? We want few things. We want, first thing what we want is, we will use this ng at ngrx/store. So it will go find the package and ask you, can I add this? See, that is what it is trying to do. See, it is determining the package, everything is there. Can I proceed? Yes, please proceed. This next one is, we will use NgRx store dev tool for our debugging purpose. The second one is this, and I'm gonna add this, say yes. And the last one, ng add ngrx effects. Effects are very useful to find out what are getting triggered. Okay, so this is the last one. We enter this, we say yes. Okay, now let's clear this CLS, and here what I'm going to do is, I'm going to create ng generate components / ngrx examples. Okay, our first one is the questionnaires. So the questionnaires is the component. So I'm going to create this. Oh, see, I did a mistake. It's NgRx, not MgRx. Okay, so let's wait for a few seconds. Okay, so we have components, we have questionnaires. Next, so right click here, click on new folder and say stores. Okay, where we will maintain all of the important things. So store, there's only one store, and under the store we'll start with something called banking. Why banking? Our logic is related to our banking, so that's why I'm giving a meaningful name called banking. The very first thing that you need to do is actions.ts. There will be a file called action.ts and we're going to write an action. Don't worry, we will go one by one. So we will start with export. We will export a variable called answer questions. Okay, what this will do is we have to create an action first. Don't worry if you don't understand. Okay, first stay with me. So create action is coming from NgRx Store. You see this? And if you actually put like this, right, it will show you three overriding methods. So you have three different types you can use. One is like this, just a string. You can also like send like this. Okay, so now what we are going to do is we are going to define a name for the action like this. Okay, we are going to define a name like this. It's a questionnaires answer questions. That's a name. It's an action's name. This there is an action called answer question, and we're giving a label. This is like a label. Okay, now what here we want is we wanted to send this information. For example, we want to send question number parameter that's of type number, and then an answer that is of type string. Okay, and it is giving you error because control period will give you an option to pull that import. It's also coming from the NgRx Store. Okay, you understand? So don't worry, it's just an action that we created. We gave a label and it is holding this kind of a option, question and a number. That is what this action will dispatch. Okay, stay with me. Next is reducer. So we go here, we create something called reducer.ts. Action, reducer, selector. These three are the main thing that we first have to define. Okay, so in the reducer, what we are going to do is first we will define an interface. Okay, like this. So questionnaire state is an interface. It's like a model that is having a property called answer, and the answer property is of dictionary type. Do you know dictionary? A key value pair, a key and its value. If you look at this, this is a model. In other words, it has a property called answers of type dictionary, meaning a key, that's why it's a colon, a value, a key, a value. Value is of type string, key is of type number. Okay, we define this. Next, we will have to define a variable that has an initial state for this model. So we are saying a variable name constant called initial state of type this, which has an empty value in its property. It has a property. When you define of particular type, you need to give a value. So this one is nothing but a initialization. This variable holds a initialization of this type. That's it. Okay, now comes our next part. What we do, we will create something called questionnaire reducer. Export constant questionnaire reducer. This is a constant which you are exporting. When you export only, anything that you export only, you can import it from other places. Okay, that's why we are exporting. Anyone can use it. We are saying create reducer. Again, in the reducer we have to define its initial stage like this. This is the initial stage, and we are saying this, and I'll explain you this, okay? Because when I did, I was also having the same confusion. Okay, now we have the reducer logic. Let's go over this code. Okay, what is this reducer is doing? Let's understand this. This is a reducer code. Okay, so what it is doing is this one, create reducer, right? So create reducer, this function actually comes from the NgRx store. So for good. Okay, what it is doing, it creates a reducer function that handles one or more action. Okay, think of it like, if any of these action happens, update the state like this. Okay, I'll repeat one more time. This reducer is it's actually creating a function that handles one or more action, and we're defining action and defining what to do. Okay, so we are saying if any of these actions happens, update the state like this. So now let's go to the this part. So this part, right? This part is the starting or the default state of your app, because when you start, user has not selected anything, any questions he has not selected. There's no answer selected, right? That's why it is empty, and this is the default state of your app. Okay, now this particular line, let's talk about this particular line. So this line is saying when an action, this one is dispatched, run the function. Where is the function? This is the function. When this question is dispatched, when this action is dispatched, run this. That's why it's called on this, do this. Okay, now here the parameters, here if you see state and this one, these two are the parameters. This one is the current stage before the change. Okay, and this one, this is called destructuring. This is something called destructuring in ECMAScript 6. It takes these two from a particular object. That's called destructuring. So this is a destructuring, and it pulls out the two values from where sent with the action. Action is sending some information, right? You remember, if you go to action is sending a value of type this. When this action is sent, we are pulling these two information, and if you look at this closely, question number and answer will exactly match these two property. If it doesn't match, it cannot pull. It will look for these two properties exactly. So this naming should match with your actions prop. Remember that. Okay, so for good. Now what it is doing is this one, right? When this action is performed, work on this, like this, execute this. That's what we just told. Now let's explain this. This dot is called spread operator in ECMAScript 6. So this is the spread operator. It means copy all properties from the old state. So far you're just copying the current state. Now here comes this next part, this part. What this is doing, this is where the magic happens. You're updating just one part, the answer for the selected question. Okay, so for the particular question, what is the answer that you're updating? Okay, now let's move on to the next part called selectors.ts. So here what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a selector called select questionary state. Okay, so for that you have to write like this: select feature selector. This is the feature that we're building. Okay, so we are just storing that value. We give a name here, and we will have another selector called select answer. Okay, and the select answer is a local variable, so it's coming from create selector, the state, comma, the answer. So basically the selector is like, you give the state, it gets the answer. That is what it is doing. Okay, now let's move on to the component part. And still you have questions? Don't worry, I was also like you. Okay, so let's go one by one. in the component, what we will do is we will create a we'll create a variable called answers. Okay, so if you see a variable name followed by dollar symbol means it's observable. We are not waiting for the value, it's asynchronously updated. So basically this variable is an observable of type dictionary type, a given question and an answer. Okay, now what we do, we will inject the store in the constructor. So constructor, a private variable called store, we will inject the store. It's coming from the NgRx and we are injecting the value. And you see this select answers. Select answer is coming from our selector. So the answers is the local observable. We are initializing this. This .store.select, we provide the name of the selector. So in this case, this is our selector. So it gets us the answers for the current state. Alright, so this one is initialized. Now let's set up something, a basic question. Okay, so let's say we set up a variable called questions, a local variable, an array of type. So basically question ID, the question and its choices. This is the format. Okay, so I have a question number, the question text and the options that one of the options the user will choose. This is a default value. Okay, this can be changed according to our requirement, but this is what we're going to ask. We're going to ask what is your monthly income, how often you will withdraw the money, are you planning to run a business or for this account. This is our question. So let's assume, okay, now let's start with the initial variable. So there's a variable called current question index and let's say the index is 0. Okay, now what we will do, we will create a property. Okay, a getter property. So if you say get followed by a property name like this, a current question. Okay, so basically like this. Okay, so just imagine a property that you define, it will be like this. Okay, like a function, but when you call, you should not call like a function, which we will see in the HTML. Okay, so what this is doing, it is going to return this one. So it goes to this question, which is here, index is 0. So very first time it returns what? Nothing, because there is no question called 0, which is fine. Okay, it's just a property that returns based on the current index, question index. Okay, now let's have another function. Let's have a function called go next. Is a function. What it is doing is, if anyone calls this function, it will check if the current index is less than the number of question minus 1. So number of question is 3, 3 minus 1 is 2. If the current index is less than 2, okay, then we increase the question, the next question, because if you're on second question, you can make the current question as 3. If you're on third question, you cannot make the current question as 4 because our number of question itself is 3. Okay, alright, so let's format this. And then if anyone wants to go back, we will create another function which will say, hey, if the current index is more than 0, you can subtract it. If the current index itself is 0, you can't subtract it, it will go in minus. Okay, that's it. It just sets the value for this and this. Okay, now here comes the interesting part. Let's create another function. Okay, stay with me. Let's create another function called onSelect. Like for example, somebody is selecting from the UI, right? When they select, we pass the question ID and the selected answer. Here what we will do, we will call this .store-dispatch. If you remember, in dispatch you have to specify the action and its properties. Here in this case, answer question is our action. If you go inside this action, what it is asking, you have to send this content, right? That is what we are sending. You invoke the action and pass the content, which is in properties, like prop. That's it. You dispatch. An action happened, it dispatches dispatching an action. That's it. Whenever an action is happening and dispatch happens, what happens? A reducer comes into play, right? That will automatically store the values. So Now what will happen, let's create another function. Okay, this function is nothing, it's not doing anything. It just takes the answers and maps it and see how many answers do we have. We have 3 answers. It says yes or no. That's it. Basically this is to find out whether all the 3 questions has been answered or not. Okay, that's it. Now let's write some common logic. Okay, this is like business logic. Okay, what this function is doing is, we have a function based on your selection. If your third answer is yes, return business account. If the first answer is less than $1,000, return savings account. If the first answer is above $5,000 and the frequency is frequently, for the second one it's a checking account. If not, by default it is a saving account. So this is the business logic. If user selects this combination, return that combination, return this, something like that. Okay, this is the business logic. Okay, from the component perspective, that's it. Let's jump on to the HTML and let's dive in one by one. Okay, I'm going to copy paste a piece of code, but I will promise I'll explain you every single line of the code. Okay, I'm going to copy paste this, the working code. When I copy paste this working code, this gives me this kind of an error, which means basically we're missing common module and form module. So let's bring this common module and form module. Okay, so that went here. Now let's go over every single line of code. Okay, as I promised. Okay, let's make this a little bit big. Okay, so basically we start with the div container. It's just a label, a text. This is like a pure HTML, we don't need to worry about. Okay, what we have to go through is this part. So we are saying, if the current question, we are first assigning current question as Q, just to simplify. Instead of current question dot, we will say Q dot. It's just an alias, like how we use it in SQL, right? So we are saying, if whenever there's a question, if the question is having a value, then we're saying question dot text, show the question. Okay, and then if you open up here, we need to show them the choice, right? So current question is 0. When it becomes the current question is like first question, right? So when the first question is shown, the question is shown, and question, if I go here, what is question? This is a getter property. Remember, whenever there's a getter property in component, you will write like this, but when you're accessing, you will write just the getter name, not like this. If you start writing like this, it becomes a function, so it will say there's no function. Getter property, no parenthesis when you access it from the HTML. Okay, so this getter property is going to get us the question. Okay, the question will have this kind of format: a text, an ID, a text, and option. So when we display the first question, we go over its option and display the radio button. This is a simple HTML. Here, until here, it's a simple HTML. No NgRx is involved. Okay, now where is our NgRx is involved? Okay, next is navigation. We have the go back and go previous, right? The back and forth button. That is what we need to deal with it. Now, before even we go there, with the simple thing, what do we have? We have something like this. What this is doing? See, answers is nothing but the observable of the current selected question answer, right? If the current question is 1, what we will do, if you remember, this one will hold a key and a value, correct? From where this is getting fetched, if I go here and search, see, it is fetching based on the selected answer. Okay, so this one will have a value. Okay, if it has a value and if the question ID matches the option ID that we stored in the store, the checkbox will be checked. And whenever you select the change, like whenever you click on any of the radio button, this method is called. When this method is called, we pass the question ID and the option. The option means the value. So if I go here, whenever this is happening, you see this, an action is dispatched. Okay, you understand? Whenever action is dispatched, reducer will update the state, which we will debug it one by one. So the go back button will be disabled if the current index is 0, because you can't go back to the -1 question. Question starts from 1. The initial state is 0, that's why the back button is disabled. But once you go to the select the first one and go to the next one, you see this, the disables are handled based on which question you are in. If you are on third question, next button will be disabled. This is good. And in the final recommendation, what we do is we call this method to see all the 3 answers are there. That is what this function is doing. And then it will call this method, pass the answers, find out what it is, and display it. Okay, let's go and see a demo one more time. Okay, so let's go to the demo. Let's go here. Okay, this is what the first page, right? So I opened up the debugging tool, the debugger tool. See, when you show the first one, the question and the choice, but both are disabled because the store doesn't have any value. It doesn't know what it is. The user selects this, and what happened? We had a debugger, so the property on select was fired, and you see the current question is 0. So we're going to run this. Let's run this. So let's go to this first one. See, very first thing, you'll show the question, first question and choices. Because user has not selected anything, both the buttons are disabled. Okay, now the user selects this. On select method will be fired and the store is updated. So let's see if I go here, what happens. Here on select was fired, the store was dispatching the question and the choice. So it will go to the action. Let's go to this action. This is the action, right? This is the action. So if I go to reducer, reducer is wired up with whenever this action is dispatched with this value, question and number, this is executed. It takes the current state, updates the answer. This all happens automatically because it's like it's all wired up. Okay, so this is happening. Now what happens if I say next, question index is updated, the next question is shown, back button is enabled because current index is more than 0. I select something, again same thing, the moment I select this, remember this is what is tricky. Whenever I click on that value, this is fired. Whenever an action is dispatched in the reducer, we have already configured that, hey, if this action comes in, execute this code. This code is getting executed every time whenever you select an option. Whenever there's a dispatch of action happens, this is executed. Okay, whenever this is executed, it takes the current state, updates the store with the current state. Okay, that's when this is keep happening, and once everything is done, the value is shown. Okay, so this is how it works, and that's how easy it is to use NgRx Store in Angular for real world use cases. So you saw how to manage the state with action, reducer and selectors. So without any overcomplicated setup, in the next video we will build a job recommended app using the same concept but with more features. So stay tuned, and if you like this video, hit the like button, subscribe to my channel. So comment in the video how easy and how helpful it was. If you did not understand any particular part, please let me know in the comment section. I will accommodate that in the next video. So stay tuned guys, I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye. Thanks for watching. If you found this video helpful, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more tech tutorials. And don't forget to hit the bell icon to get notified when we post new videos. If you have any questions or suggestions, leave them in the comments below. Happy coding!